Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
Howdy, I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish. Nice to meet y'all.
And today we will be playing the first part of my personal, I think I'm workshopping this. I think backlog bright spot, maybe like something good and awesome on our individual backlogs. I don't know. We'll see if it works. It probably won't stick. But we'll be playing Wild Arms V, the Veeth Vanguard, and we'll be covering up until the team leaves Capo Branco on their journey. But before we get to all of that, how is everyone's week?
So I was excited because I finally got my insurance in order. I got to a new psychiatrist. They were like, we are going to give you the ADHD medication you need to function and not be miserable at your job. But then I remembered there's a big shortage, and I remembered that because the pharmacy told me they don't have it. So that's not fun.
No.
That's awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I got my prescription a couple of months ago, my doctor was like, which one would you like? I'm like, let's try Wellbutrin because it's not in a shortage, because I would hate to have to go through life without medicine just because there's a shortage. So that sucks for you, and I hope that you find some quickly.
I was reading about this shortage, and so the pharmaceutical companies are saying, well, it's because the DEA is doing all these weird restrictions on us, and the DEA is apparently saying, like, they could totally make more. And I'm like, if they could make more and sell it, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying companies necessarily always do the most logical thing, but I feel like companies in general like selling product.
Yeah, I wonder if it's some sort of like play to like, oh, we want to be less restricted by the DEA so we can start another opioid epidemic. So we are saying it's the DEA's fault so that people who need this to function complain enough, they release some restrictions for the DEA so that now we can do things poorly. Because if I'm going to,
I didn't think of that might be it. Get people pushing for less restriction or regulation on stuff.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Hate it. That's so evil.
Yeah, because if I'm going to blame anybody, it's probably Big Pharma.
Yeah,
their job shouldn't exist, so they're probably evil about it. Would be my guess.
But see, the thing is, I see this problem. Like, I don't trust Big Pharma. I also don't trust the DEA. So I don't know what to think.
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully, it doesn't last for much longer, though.
Hopefully.
Because as a neurodivergent person, all of my friends are neurodivergent and really are vastly affected by this shortage.
Yeah. Speaking of medication, I believe, if I remember correctly, last week on the Nope episode, I talked a little bit about getting my blood drawn, or it might have been the week before that. I don't remember. I was like, yeah, now all I need to do to get my medicine, my hormones, to make sure I don't run out, because I'm starting to run out, I just need to get my blood pressure checked somewhere. That's easy. Every pharmacy has a blood pressure machine, right? And the answer to that was no, actually, they don't. There are two there's a Walgreens and a CVS, a 5-minute walk from my house. Neither have one. I ended up having to call so many different pharmacies to find one, and then get driven all the way over to where that one was, which was like 20 minutes away, in order to just get my blood pressure taken. Which I feel like the process of that raised my blood pressure. But I have the prescription sent in. I just need to pick it up. So that's nice. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Aside from that, there is a wonderful internet personality who released a song that has been devouring my brain, and I've listened to it at least 30 times, and I'm probably going to listen to it another 30 times before the week is out.
Does it happen to be Xtina GG? Because her new song is also really good.
No, it's BDG and TC.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
OMG.
Brian David Gilbert and Tom
Okay.
Cardy collaborated on a song together, and it's
That
amazing.
that video's still in my watch later on YouTube, so I haven't checked it out yet. But if
It's so good. I literally put it on Spotify on a loop and just
Nice.
had it going for over an hour. And I'm like, it's in my head right now as I'm trying to talk about other things, but the lyrics are in my brain
Nice.
and they want to escape, but I can't let them.
Yeah. Similarly, new Blink-182 starring Tom DeLonge came out yesterday, and it's good. It's like real good. A lot of people say that it's the best that Blink has been in years, and like I'm one of those people that really liked the Matt Skiba era, so I don't think it's the best it's been in years. I think it is more good, like the good that it has been lately, but it does reach back into old Blink in a way that the Matt Skiba era didn't. Like some songs sound like Boxcar Racer, some songs sound like Plus 44. One of the thankfully short songs sounds like Angels and Airwaves. Things like it sounds like every era of Blink plus like some new weird shit that they're trying out, like all just comes together to be this weird hodgepodge that feels like Blink in a way that like when California came out, everyone was like, oh, it feels like Blink because it feels like a Take Off Your Pants and Jacket era album. But there are so many things Blink related after that are also canon. And this one feels like Blink, and it feels like it's reaching back, but it's reaching back like everywhere. And it's so good. And I really, really like it. And if you like pop punk at all and or emo music, you should check it out because it's real good. Also, they released like a hour and a half interview documentary thing on YouTube and Apple Music, and that's also really good. This being Tom's return to the band after the Matt Skiba era, a lot of people are like, so you guys hated each other publicly for years. What the fuck is up with that? And instead of shying away from it, they like dig into it in the interview, and it's really, really interesting. But yeah, it's good. I really enjoy it, and I've been listening nonstop since yesterday.
So this is what happens when I'm ranting to people I know about like the new the new Hawk Girl series and how I'm so excited about it because I know only the most barest pop culture understanding of Blink 182, and
Yeah.
like I was just like, oh, when I start talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths, that's what it feels like for other people.
Yeah. This is what it feels like when you talk to me about almost anything, because I'm a hipster, but like I'm not a gatekeepy hipster. I'm like oh, you haven't heard about the Eighth Doctor? Here, let me unload on you for 3 hours so that you can be a fan too. And it doesn't work that way, as
No.
Bernard can attest, as the recipient of a lot of these. But yeah.
Speaking of, since I did throw it out there, the new Hawk Girl series is really good. Written by Jadzia Axelrod, drawn by Emmett K. Nahulpan. It is so fucking good. Also, mad respect to a trans woman who got a new name and was like, I'm gonna pick Jadzia Dax.
Right.
Take Jadzia's name. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of Jadzia Dax, I also have been watching a shitload of Star Trek, and it continues to be good. I'm on the quote unquote worst part of the Star Trek canon, and it's fantastic. So I'm in for a penny, in for a pound for the whole rest of it. But yeah, let's talk about something else that I can talk about forever, and let's talk about Wild Arms 5. Wild Arms is a series created by MediaVision and paid for first party, second party, whatever, by Sony Computer Entertainment. In the late-ish era of the PlayStation, Sony was like, man, it's awesome that we have all these Final Fantasies coming out, but what if we lose them? That would suck. Let's make our own. And so they made Wild Arms and Legend of Dragoon. Weirdly, I just remembered that they also made Legend of Dragoon for the same reasons. But
I mean, I think it's understandable fear considering they picked up Final Fantasy from Nintendo.
Yeah, it's very weird that two of my most important games were Sony being like, we need to catch some Final Fantasy kids, and instead they caught me. So good job, Sony. But so the first Wild Arms game was a very solid JRPG experience. It was notable for its amazing music, its super killer anime FMV opening. It had multiple protagonists with multiple different opening chapters that converged later on, and it had at the time impressive 3D battle graphics. It was also at the time. Wild Arms,
although the overworld was 2D and kind of looked shitty.
Yeah. It was also notable for being about cowboys. So
sort of.
Wild Arms smushed like JRPG aesthetics, steampunk robots, anime, and the American West all together into a chimeric monstrosity that somehow worked incredibly well. Gameplay wise, it was pretty basic attack, magic, item, defend sort of battle system, with the main differentiator being force points that you earn while doing other things in battle. Then you cash them in for special moves, kind of like Star Power from Super Lesbian Animal RPG. In the dungeons, it was a Lufia clone with Zelda-style puzzles using tools, which is like overworld Zelda items that help you solve these puzzles. Wild Arms 2 Second Ignition mostly honed these ideas, trading in the 2D overworld sprites with some of the best SD 2D, that is HD 2D, but on the PS1. So it has some of the best SD 2D graphics on the PlayStation 1, things like Xenogears, Dragon Quest, that sort of vibe, but it looks really, really good. It's just about cowboys with swords and dragons and shit. Then we made our way to the PS3 and we got Wild Arms 3, which
the PS2.
PS2, that's right. My notes say PS3 because I'm dumb. I'm probably thinking about Wild Arms 3 and wrote the wrong number. Anyway, so on the PS2, we got Wild Arms 3, which was an even further refinement of this basic system. It's just now in cel-shaded 3D graphics. The thing that they added, stupidly, is in between turns, your characters run in a circle around the outside of the battle so that there's movement on screen. It affects literally nothing. It just makes the battles more visually engaging, which, like, good on them, but it's stupid and I love it.
It sounds like it would also cause things to unnecessarily take longer.
No, it's still snappy. Like you don't. Okay. It's just like while they're not fighting, they're running around, but positioning doesn't matter. So whenever it's your turn, they just stop running around and you take your turn, and otherwise it just keeps going. So Wild Arms 3 Advanced Third is the one that most people have played, though I personally haven't beaten it. I've gotten started and gotten pretty far multiple times, but I fall off of it. And then the next time I pick it up, I'm like, man, I kind of just want to start it over because the beginning's so good. I love the way they do the opening chapter. Just real quick, you're on a train that all 5 of your party members, 4 or 5, however many, are trying to heist and steal the thing on the train. So they show up to the treasure box. They all draw their guns on each other, and then it pulls up a cursor. It's like, choose your main character, and you pick from the 4 of them and go and do their backstory part. It's really cool.
That sounds awesome.
So, yeah, as a recap, the Wild Arms identity is multiple protagonists, cowboys, anime, steampunk, turn-based JRPG battles, Zelda dungeons with Lufia-style tools. So then Wild Arms 4, the fourth detonator, is a cyberpunk anime with a single protagonist, side-scrolling portions, a massively different tactics-ish battle system, a completely unpolished and unrefined presentation. No one liked it. It basically is worse.
Why?
It basically is worse than Xenogears Disc 2 on how bad its presentation is. Like, some scenes are visual novel talking heads, some are 3D in engine, some are 3D models standing over a CG, some are a weird combination of all three, and often the presentation would switch up multiple times in the same scene. It was pretty bad. It was not like the rest of the Wild Arms games, so Wild Arms fans hated it. It was a bad game, so everyone else hated it. So it definitely tanked any momentum that the series had from Wild Arms 3 Advanced Third being so good.
That sounds like a train wreck.
Yeah. So Mediavision pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, replaced a few of the key development staff, dusted themselves off, and started making Wild Arms V, the Vth Vanguard. They looked at where Wild Arms 4 went wrong, and believe it or not, in some of the places where it went right. That tactics-y battle system ruled, actually. It just wasn't fun to play because all of the other problems of the game. So they kept that battle system, polished it up to a perfect sheen, and then course-corrected on many of the other points. Cowboys are back. Zelda dungeons are back. A consistent visual style, weirdly enough, is back. A coherent narrative is back. They hired Kaori Kurosaki, a pulp fantasy novelist, to write the scenario. Multiple protagonists were still out, but she replaced it with subtle branching narratives, which I didn't know was a thing until I was writing the notes for this. So it'll be cool to compare how we go. It's not like you get to a point and it's like, do you want to kill a child or get a candy bar like in BioShock? It's just the different ways that you solve things will make it make you get different things. So they took their time with this game. They made the best damn game they knew how to, and then they released it over a year after the PS3 was out. So a series that had disappointed its diehard fans releases the game on last-gen hardware while no one is watching, and the sales are incredibly crappy. But the game is a masterpiece, so there aren't a lot of copies of it made because the sales were so crappy, and everyone who has one loves the game and isn't letting it go. So it's like $300 to own a copy of this game. So we're all pirating the shit out of it. Sony should definitely just put these games on PS Plus. They have nothing to lose. Because it would be great to not
keeps happening. How many times has it been like, oh, this incredible game, this incredible JRPG specifically comes out at the very end of a console's release, so no one plays it, even though it's a masterpiece.
Yep.
I want to do a bit of fact checking. It came out in Japan about a month after the PS3, but it did come out in North America almost a year after the PS3. So,
okay.
Yeah, it
Good
was
job, Bernard.
still. I love correcting Sam.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, point remains. People wanted PlayStation 3 games.
Yeah. So since we're not going to shell out,
PS3 has no game.
It's true. Since we don't want to shell out over $1,000 for us to all play this legit, and when we do so, even Mediavision won't get our money for it. We're instead going to buy Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth because it's an available Mediavision game, and the game also owns.
I've heard that game's very good.
It's very good. But so yeah, we're going to start actually talking about Wild Arms V, the Vth Vanguard, now-ish. When you start your game, you're greeted by some floating text that says, Filgaia, a world divided, a world of masters and slaves, of fear, hatred, and despair. An ordinary boy from the countryside set out to bring change to that desolate world. His courage inspired all, paving the way to true independence. This is his story.
I want to describe this boy as ordinary. He's
not.
He's
listen, weirdo and a bit of a loser.
Yes. His name is Dean Stark. He is an anime boy with a great scarf and a awesome jacket.
And one hell of a Yuri Lowenthal voice. The most
Yes.
Yuri
That is
Lowenthal
indeed-
voice you've ever heard.
That's some Simone the Digger Yuri Lowenthal. But I was just gonna say that text card about it is immediately followed. Like it's this classic JRPG. We're starting with a text crawl explaining a little bit about this world and foretelling the journey you're about to go, and then some and there's birds in the sky flying by, and then there's a gunshot and a guy going like, "Oh damn, I missed it." A really thick accent, and it's like, oh, that's what we're going for. Love it.
Yeah.
I love that just immediate. This
This
is
is
going to be a
Cowboys.
western. Don't worry. This is Cowboys.
The only other Wild Arms game I've played is I've played a bit of Wild Arms 1, and I may mention before when we were talking about Skies of Arcadia or something, I sort of found the cowboy setting in that a little lacking. I found the theming not to be very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wondered, I wonder if they go harder on that in future games, and they definitely do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it.
It's such a good thing to put in a JRPG. I'm surprised no one else has copied it even a little bit. The American West was when America was a JRPG for a while. People went on quests and went on adventures. You would think it would be everywhere, but
I mean, Wild West theme does have one major swamp, I guess I would call it, of how do you handle the indigenous shit. And I'm still very sitting here going, I sure do wait. I'm looking forward to seeing what Wild Arms, how it approaches that, or if it just cuts it out entirely. I don't know, but I'm completely blind to Wild Arms. I know basically nothing.
As far as I know, I don't ever see it come up in Wild Arms 5. It is definitely a thing in 2 and 3, though. They don't handle it wonderfully, but not in a bad way. Matt is some of his ancestry is Native American, and he will go off on anything that gets it horribly wrong. I always thought the original Prey was pretty cool, but hearing from Matt, he's like, oh no, it's horrible and kind of racist. So he is filled in, and he still likes 2 and 3. So the way that they do it is not great, but not offensively bad.
Okay, well that's good. I'd love to hear Matt's perspective on that sometime.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah. So Dean Stark, he's headed towards the hillside ruins near his hometown of Capo Branco, hoping to find some golem parts. Golem being robot. He's not expecting to actually find them because these ruins are heavily picked over already. But hey, he might get lucky. After all, this is the opening moments of a JRPG, and an inciting incident is definitely needed. We take Dean through the ruins, which are an overworld tutorial teaching us how to push blocks, activate switches, and navigate the world in 3D. Along the way, he finds a journal filled with poetry abandoned on the ground. He recognizes the handwriting as his friend Rebecca's, but in order to recognize handwriting, you have to read it. So he knows she's going to get pissed at him for reading her poetry.
It's
but indeed, reading her
poetry.
Yeah, her poetry about honey-bosomed maidens.
But regardless, he says he's going to bring it back to her, so he pockets it. At the end of our portion of these ruins, it obviously goes farther, but we can't unlock the doors. He actually manages to find a golem part, and it's not well hidden or anything.
Just in some dirt.
Every other person who's come through must have had a full inventory or something, because there's no way they missed this laying on the floor 10 rooms into this complex. Dean feels like this golem part must be special, so he wants to take it back to Old Man Tony to get his thoughts on it. He lugs it back to town, and Tony confirms that this is a real golem part, and he asks Dean what he's planning to use it for, but Dean doesn't say. He says he has some grand plan that is never brought up again, at least not yet. He instead heads off to find Rebecca to return her book. When he finds her, she is not thrilled about Dean having read her poetry, but after an apology and a small beatdown, Dean says he's going to head out to Celestial Peak, so sayonara. Rebecca's like, why where are you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going to go say goodbye. And she's like, goodbye to what? And Dean's like, actually, come with me. I think you should be there to hear it too. Rebecca is confused, but she agrees to join him and joins the party. So then we can leave to enter the world map. The world map in Wild Arms 5 is basically just another place, but it has different rules. It's pretty much at human scale and is a big explorable zone. It's a lot more of a Hyrule field than a world map.
But it's weird because like you can't jump.
Yeah.
You can't jump, and there's the only dedicated button thing is searching, which
they
occasionally means a voice
tutorialized.
line.
But if you want to hear Yuri Lowenthal say something, you can hit that button.
Yeah. So the searching on the world map is a Wild Arms thing. In other games, it really helped the wilderness vibe because they would be like, oh, I think the cave you're looking for is over those mountains over there. So go over there and you can find it. And instead of just walking to the dot on your map like you would in most games, you actually did kind of have to search and find it. The other games are a lot more of a barren desert wilderness, so that was like it fit the vibe there a lot. It doesn't really fit the vibe here, and it's basically just you hear Yuri Lowenthal say, let's check it out, over and over and over again.
Yes.
I on my whole play for this section, I found one chest searching, and that was it.
I found like 4 or 5.
Okay. So the gang heads to Celestial Peak, and when they get there, random encounters are turned on, and we're introduced to Tim Rogers' favorite JRPG battle system. And as it's going, it might be mine too.
It's so good.
It's very weird and different, so I'm going to try and explain it in brief. So
it's hard to explain.
Yeah. So similar to a Trails or a Rhapsody, it's when you get into a random battle, it takes you to an instance battle arena, but you can move around on the spots like in a tactics game. But unlike a tactics game, these spots are big ass hexes made up in a grid of 7. Boss battles change that up a little bit, but it's usually just a grid of 7 hexes. And being big hexes instead of small squares, multiple units can inhabit the same hex. But where it gets interesting is that you don't attack units, you attack hexes. So you and your buddies can all run up on the boss and be in the same square, but then the boss can hit all of you for one attack, which is pretty cool. But
and you can also heal everyone in one hex.
Mm-hmm. But if you and your buddies are in the same hex and your turns are next to each other and you have compatible force skills, you can team up and do a combo attack. Force skills use the force points that are coming back from previous Wild Arms games. So you do things that aren't using force skills and you gain force points. And the more force points you get, the more you can use your force skills. Later, we'll get there next week, actually. But the force skills that your character have depend on their equipable emblems, I think they're called. It's kind of like a spell book from Super Lesbian RPG, but you unlock more skills as you level it up. However, leveling it up reduces your max HP. So if you want to build someone into a all-rounder powerhouse, they'll have a much lower HP than somebody who just shoots their gun every turn. Another thing that's different from normal RPGs is magic. A few random hexes in the battle will be lay points assigned with a specific element. When you stand in these hexes, it'll make you resist that element, but be weaker to that element's opposite. So like for fire, it's water, etc. And then the spells that you use of that type will get stronger. Even cooler is the first spell that you get in the game is not specifically tied to an element. It's just a blast spell that deals the damage of the hex that you're in. So if you're not on a lay point, it's just physical damage. But if you're on the green lay point, it'll do wind damage. In addition, MP is shared among the party, and it is much more difficult to restore than in most games. You have to find items in the dungeon to refill them. Like I didn't mention it earlier, but there are like floating coins and shit in Wild Arms for some reason, and some of those floating coins will give you MP. And I'm sure there will eventually be restoration items for it, but the one shop that we can get to this week doesn't have any, and we didn't find any in any of the chests.
They have shared MP?
I believe so.
I believe not.
I think they have individual MP.
I could have sworn it was like a big meter on top. So I don't know. I'll double check it when I'm playing later. I am known to be wrong about everything, but it's because you pick up the coins and it says it refills the party's MP. It's part of why I was thinking it, and I
Well,
felt like
if
it went
you
down for everyone because I did not heal a lot with Avril, but I did do magic a lot with other people, and Avril could not heal.
Bernard has disproved what you said.
yeah, if you look at this, you'll see they have their MP counts next to their health.
Hmm.
It looks like the force level, which I do not understand. I believe that's
I don't
shared.
really either.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
So
I think it's a gauge that fills up when you do other stuff.
yeah,
And then
those are
it's what
the force points I was talking about earlier. You get 4 skills next week, and you'll use that meter. And yeah,
Also, a fun thing is that they tutorialize how you can shoot these things that make these things that restore your MP show up. They tutorialize that well before you actually get any skills
yeah,
that use MP.
definitely.
Yep. Also, cool thing about this battle system is if you have ranged attacks, you can shoot in a line of hexes, but not diagonally.
Mhm.
So Rebecca can just hang at the edge and snipe.
Yeah, it's cool. One thing that is cool about that though is you do more damage if you're closer to them. So even if you have range, you should kind
I
of
didn't know that.
run up. So if Rebecca is picking off, she'll do about 2/3 of a health bar. But if she's right next to it, she'll probably do a whole health bar. And her everybody has abilities like their Pokemon, and her ability is if she gets a crit, she shoots a whole second time, which
She
is
does, and it's awesome.
it's so cool.
Rebecca is awesome.
She is. So yeah, that was a lot to go through, but it is important because it's so different than basically any other battle system. So we can casually mention things as we go on, and it'll hopefully make sense. So the gang enters Celestial Peak, and they get the battle system tutorialized. And while doing that, Dean and Rebecca have a few walk and talk conversations. Dean keeps going on about his golem part being loud and excited, and Rebecca's like, dude, shut up. The monsters are like extra strong lately, and they're going to attack you. And Dean's like, oh, there's monsters here because he's stupid, and I love him. Rebecca scolds him for not having a plan, and then a big ugly thing with a bat face crawls out and jumps at them, and we have our first boss fight. He's super easy since we only have 1.5 character currently. Dean fights with a shovel and does piddly damage, so basically Rebecca does all of the work, and Dean gets a participation trophy.
He does. And it's very funny because, like, it feels like Rebecca is very aware of the fact that she's the one doing 90% of the work, but it doesn't feel like Dean is aware of that.
No, not at all. Dean thinks that he is an anime protagonist in many literal ways, and it's fantastic.
I mean, wouldn't you think that if you were voiced by Yuri Lowenthal?
It's true.
Please no. I'll take Wendy Lee.
So they continue on through the mountain dungeon, and along the way, Dean stops to reminisce. Back when him and Rebecca were kids, Dean found his first golem part on this peak. When he found it, Tony told him that golems are living beings, even down to their smallest bolt. So this bolt is warm and alive, proving that it's a golem part and not just a piece of metal on the ground.
That's been in the sun.
Yes.
That's really interesting, though. I do love that idea.
Mm-hmm. It's Iron Giant. At the top of the peak, Rebecca is like, okay, cool. We did a dungeon. What do you want? And Dean is like, I'm 16, so I'm an adult now, and I want to head out on my own and explore the world, and I'm going to leave the village. I brought you here because this place is important to the both of us, and you're important to me, so I wanted this to be special, and so I brought you up here to talk about it. Rebecca is impressed. She's called Dean childish and dumb like this whole game so far, but turns out he can make a plan, and she's also kind of jealous of him making that plan because she's been practicing sharpshooting so she can join the circus. But
acrobatic sharpshooting.
Sharpshooting. But she admits right now that's kind of just been something to occupy herself with. She didn't think she could actually ever leave the village like Dean is ready to do right now. However, she's worried about Dean because he doesn't have an arm, not like an appendage, but an advanced relic machine, aka a gun. Not all
Oh,
arms.
that's what it stands for. Okay.
The fun fact, they don't say what it stands for in Wild Arms 5, but that's what it means in the other games.
Okay.
They just keep calling it arms, and you're like, okay, arm means gun, like armament, and then Avril's arm is a sword, so whatever.
I think that it has like a bullet chamber thing on it still.
Yeah.
It does. It does take bullets.
It's a bullet sword, but not a gun blade.
It's like Weiss's thing for Ruby.
Yeah. Gun blades are a very important lore thing in Wild Arms, and this is not one of those, but it is a sword that uses bullets, so why not?
Gotta reload my sword.
Dean isn't worried about not having an arm because he wants to be a golem hunter, and the Hunters Guild gives new recruits an arm of their own when they're joined. And Rebecca's like, oh, I take it back. You're dumb as rocks. The guild isn't in this town, and you have to cross like a lot of the world that's swarming in monsters, and without an arm, you'll die. And Dean is like, okay, so I brought you up here so you could be nice to me, but you've hurt my feelings, so fuck you. Let's go to the other side of the peak and where the monsters are stronger. I'll fight a bunch with my shovel to prove to you that I'm not a loser, and then you can be nice to me. She's like, sure, whatever. And they continue on the dungeon.
And she continues doing most of the damage.
Yeah.
So Dean does not. I almost called him Yuri. So Dean does not actually prove himself this way.
No, not at all.
Because he's not actually fighting the monsters on his own, really. Yeah.
When they reach to the other end of the dungeon, a giant robot hand falls from the sky and crashes into a nearby cave. Rebecca is like, oh shit, we got to get out of here. And Dean is like, ooh, shiny. And he runs in to investigate. Inside the cave, the hand is glowing. And so Dean is super stoked to find a golem part this huge. But then the hand opens, and inside is a young, mysterious anime girl with weird clothes and white hair because tropes.
It's Fina.
Yeah, so right now we have a headstrong anime protagonist, a spunky redheaded best friend, and a girl with weird clothes and white hair that comes from a different civilization. We're doing Skies of Arcadia. We're doing Cowboys of Arcadia right now.
My only objection to this comparison is that I feel like comparing Dean and Vice is like a crime, and that Vice would be horribly offended.
Yes,
and rightly
so.
Rightly so.
Vice is so much cooler.
Absolutely,
he's so much cooler.
He has dorkier clothes, but pulls it off because he's cooler. Dean has cooler clothes, but is stupid and should not be. Yeah. Does not deserve the better character design. Anywho, so Dean checks on the girl and he asks her name, and she says Johnny Appleseed. And Dean is like, okay, Johnny, nice to meet you. And she goes, that's not my name, but it's something important. Then the ground under the golem arm starts to give in, so Dean grabs the girl and jumps to safety as the golem arm plummets to the bottom of the chasm. Dean and Rebecca decide to take the girl back to Capo Branco, but on the way there, they're attacked by a huge monster. Rebecca and the girl are like, we should run, but Dean is stupid, so he yells out an attack move, does a literal double jump, and with the power of anime, slams down into the monster with his shovel.
Rebecca actually says, no way, he double jumped? I think what happened is, well, he is pogo jumping on his shovel. Because he's Shovel Knight. And I think the idea is that he does a bomb jump when the thing shoots out a fireball.
Yeah, it's stupid and cool.
It's a really silly cutscene.
It's very silly.
So after he slams down on the monster, the anime girl hands Dean the 2 pistols that she was carrying. I think she actually dropped him. He picked him up, whatever. And so he then does a suplex to the monster to position it on the other side of Rebecca and the anime girl so that they can all team up and have a boss fight. After the fight, Dean goes to return the arms, but the girl says that Dean can keep them. She says that her name is Avril and that Dean is important to her, but he doesn't pay attention to that. He's just excited to have some guns, so he runs back to town to talk to Tony.
Avril is short for anime video game girl.
Yes. When they get to Tony's, they tell him about everything, and Avril says that she can only remember her name in the phrase Johnny Appleseed, and she feels drawn, she says, like a flower to sunlight to understand the meaning of the words Johnny Appleseed. Dean says that
flowers, they need sunlight real bad, but they can't do a whole lot to get it.
But they do face towards the sun.
They do.
Yeah, like they do grow in that specific way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They still can't like go on a journey.
Yes.
That's true.
As everyone knows, every spring the flowers get out of the ground and they walk eastward trying to catch the sun.
And they have a very annoying ability where they can lock it so you can't do any moves. It's really bad ability. I don't know why they gave him that one.
Yeah. So Dean says that he wants to escort Avril and help her figure everything out because the golem was super cool. And if he can figure out what Johnny Appleseed means, maybe he'll figure out where that golem came from and we'll be able to see a big one. Tony is like, well, if it has to do with Johnny Appleseed, then maybe you should go. Dean says, explain that. Tony says, no.
Actually, I played this just earlier today. Dean does not ask him to explain
He doesn't.
He does not.
This scene is so weird to me because Tony is like, well, Johnny Appleseed. And then also he says, that girl might hold the fate of our entire planet.
And Dean's just like, okay.
And neither Dean nor Avril really follow up on that.
Yeah, he also is like,
I'm wondering if he's like muttering to himself. Some of these lines is the concept, but it's not voice acted, so who can say?
Yeah. He also is like, here's some magical artifacts, and Dean's like, cool, what do they do? And he's like, I won't tell you right now. And Dean's like, cool, you gained Tony's gift.
Like, there's a note with them. He doesn't read the note.
He doesn't at all.
It like has an instruction manual. It's just like, you can read this when you're partway through the next dungeon, I guess. It's a weird scene.
The game's mechanics are actively being pushed back by the fact that the protagonist is a moron.
Oh, it's wonderful. So Tony says that we'll figure everything out when the time is right, and Dean goes, okay, cool, come on, Avril, and they immediately leave the village making no preparations whatsoever. But before they can leave, Rebecca runs up to them. She's decided that she wants to go too. She's worried about Dean, and then she also whispers to herself that she's getting serious FOMO that they're about to have an adventure. And she wants to make sure that he doesn't just charge off without making any preparations whatsoever. The camera then pans up to the sky, and a parchment texture fades in, and Rebecca's voice reads what is presumably a journal entry. She says, and so we departed on our journey. We left the village we grew up in to see new lands, meet new people, and feel the air and sky around us. To be honest, I'm more nervous than excited, but I guess it's just another step on the road to becoming an adult, huh? Anyways, I've decided to start a diary of our journey. I hope that one day it'll show us just how much we've grown throughout our travels. Then a kick-ass opening anime cutscene happens.
Right?
But instead of being anime, it's just in-engine graphics. Playing on the Steam Deck, I'm playing with a higher render resolution, so I noticed something interesting, quote unquote, that they're doing. Every cutscene in the game uses engine graphics, but most of them they cannot actually like make it load that fast to do the stuff that they want to do. So it is a pre-rendered FMV of in-engine graphics doing this anime cutscene, which is
amazing,
stupid and cool, and I love it. This anime intro also only plays at this point of the game instead of being like in attract mode or something that happens when you start a new game like in previous games.
The attract mode is cool too.
It is. So yeah, it's super duper cool. We're going to stop there this week, which is a little early. I had first planned to do about twice this and then 1.5 times this, and now I got to this point and we're hitting an hour, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in the next dungeon. So we're going to stop a little bit early and then talk about a lot more next week. But right now we're going to listen to some more wonderful music. I forgot to mention it earlier because I think Trish had a joke and I was letting the joke land. But in the Hillside shrine and in the world map, you get the main theme of Wild Arms 5, and it is the best fucking main theme of a video game ever. The whistle part will get stuck in your head. It'll get
It's
stuck in your
really
head
good.
forever, and it's one of my favorite things to just like whistle while I work. Is the opening theme to Wild Arms 5. It's fantastic. But we'll listen. One of the songs you heard today is going to be that one. I don't know if it'll be this one or if we played it earlier, but now we'll talk about our memorable moments.
So like half the music is kind of forgettable, but the other half of the music fucking owns.
I don't even remember the half that is forgettable because all I can think about are the ones that are just consume my brain.
There's like some like anime hijinks track that's just like doop doop.
Oh,
doop,
yeah,
doop,
yeah.
Dum, dum, dum. That's not how it goes, but that's how it might as well go.
I 100% know what you mean.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like this. So I am largely positive on this game from the first week. I will say there are moments like when that track is playing where I'm just like, wow, I feel like I'm watching an anime from 2006. And I don't mean that as a compliment.
You basically are.
Just he tackled her, and the silly music, and you took my diary, and I'm like, oh my god.
I feel like the writing and filmmaking and performances in this game, and performances in the scenes where there is voice acting specifically, I feel like it often just doesn't feel quite like I played this after y'all did, and y'all had said it felt kind of like Sans Arcadia, and so I'm just comparing it to that in my head. I feel like a lot of the filmmaking stuff doesn't feel quite on par with Skies of Arcadia.
No,
I would agree.
I think part of that is due to the voice acting, for mainly because it has that thing that is more noticeable in 3D animated stuff, where characters' movements are timed for the cadence of Japanese sentences, and then they are translated into English. And so unless you do a really fantastic, spectacular, inspired job of it, they just don't feel quite right. Like you see that in like Final Fantasy VII Advent Children and stuff.
Yeah.
And like you brought up earlier, there's just also some writing wonkiness.
Yes.
The scene with old Tom is really one of those where you're like, what? Am I missing something? Like, I definitely am enjoying it, but it's definitely, there are aspects like that are a little bit like,
Yeah, the moment to moment writing. I think the writing of the English script is not as good as the writing of the Japanese script, and not in just a way that like every weeaboo says that it's better in the Japanese, but I think the concepts and the things that they're talking about in each individual scene are fine and good and really, really good. It's just the wording and, like you said, the voice acting not matching the movements and things like that make it a little off. But I love that, like, our first dungeon, well, second dungeon after the tutorial dungeon, is not to go and get a MacGuffin, but it is because the characters want to do a thing for character reasons. And there's walk and talk cutscenes. JRPGs do not have walk and talk cutscenes. I wouldn't mind how long you have to read in a Kiseki game if it wasn't like, do a dungeon for 3 hours and then watch a 3-hour cutscene and then do a dungeon for 3 hours. If it was play for 6 hours and you will get 3 hours of dungeon and 3 hours of cutscene interspersed, it would rule. And
Yeah,
this game doing that, I really, really, really enjoy.
I agree. I really enjoyed the pacing of that dungeon and how they spursed out those cutscenes throughout in a way that made it flow really well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Rebecca, again, is just the best. I love her character design so
Mhm.
much.
It's so
I
good.
want that goddamn outfit. I want the jorts with the pink belt and the heart belt buckle. Like, yes, fuck yes. Also, I mean, I love. Listen, I removed from any reality context in games like this, I love revolvers, and so her being the revolver girl who does like cool acrobatics while she's doing her gun shooting is just the best.
Mhm.
I adore the fact that like she does feel like she's holding the brain cell 80% of the time, and she is doing most of the work. Uh, and I listen, it's me. I could be reading things here. It does kind of feel like her and Avril are already having some vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I do enjoy what is being built of their dynamic
Mm-hmm.
as much as there is one.
I glossed over it because I figured it would be your memorable moment, Trish. But when Rebecca is like, "I should come too," Avril is like, "Well, when I look at Rebecca, I get a warm, nostalgic feeling, so
Yes.
she can come back."
Okay, that was I didn't write down that moment specifically, but yes, that is part of when I say the vibes. It is yeah, just like okay, girl. Like,
I
listen, would I mind if there was a Skies of Arcadia-esque, like, obvious polyamorous triad happening? No, I guess I wouldn't. But Dean's no spice, so I'm fine with these two by themselves.
Yes.
we haven't seen much of Avril yet, but I like her. She is not
Same.
exactly like Fina. She strikes me as a bit more mature, a bit more cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say she's a bit colder, but in a way that's like interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. She's more lasers, less feelings than Fina.
Yes.
She's a little bit more Rei Ayanami.
I don't know who that is.
Me neither.
That's a character from Evangelion.
I
I haven't
figured
seen Evangelion in so long.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure I know who that is now that you say that it's the person from that.
Blue hair girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one that so many people say is best girl because they're wrong. That's fine.
But yes, Rebecca's great, Avril's great. Dean is trying his damnedest.
He's trying.
He's trying
When
so
you
hard.
choose to go to a new hex with him, sometimes they'll be like, "Footwork is everything," and I'm like, "Dude, calm down." And also, it's not everything. Attacking is more important.
You know who he reminds me of? Like, you
Who?
know, like, not any individual shonen protagonist, but like the concept of excited, kind of idiotic shonen battle protagonist.
Mhm.
Like, that's Dean.
Yes.
Along those lines, after he does his big anime everything, he breaks his shovel. That's why he picks up the pistols. And after he breaks it, he goes, "Oh no, Black Fenrir!" And Rebecca's like, "It's a shovel. You don't have to name it." He goes, "Okay, but was me yelling Meteor Drive okay?" He wants to
also,
be cool so bad.
if you go to his house and examine around, he has all of his old shovels, which are also broken and have a bunch of other names, and I can't remember them, but they're all of the quality of Black Fenrir. Namely, amazing. Why'd you name a shovel that, dude?
Speaking of naming a shovel, the theme song to Wild Arms 5 is called "And on that day, the shovel was named Invincible."
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
So another piece of Rebecca and Dean banter that I loved is right after you get Avril. Dean's like, "Oh, can I?" Like he's checking on her, whatever, and she's not responding because she's quiet. He's like, "Oh, I don't look too dependable, do I?" And Rebecca goes, "That's because you're not," which I love so much.
There was a weird thing in the just the way the story was told, where they're in the cave where the hand fell, and they get Avril, and they take her to safety, and they're like at the edge of the cave, and Dean and Rebecca share a few lines, and Avril's just standing in the background, and then they're like, well, let's take her back to town, and then you just are in the dungeon again, and you walk for a while before Avril appears or says anything, and it's like, I don't know,
that was
it felt
weird.
a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I like a lot about this game so far. The graphics are good.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
Like I've been looking at Wild Arms 3 stuff as well, and this game looks awesome, and I want to play it. But also, you can sort of tell that it's from 2002, and Wild Arms 5 is from 2006.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the cave where we got Avril, there's a extended bit that I love where Dean is checking out the robot hand, and Rebecca's like, be careful. He's like, this is the left hand. You shoot with your right hand, but reload with your left hand. Since this is a left hand, it's his reloading hand, so it won't hurt me.
Meanwhile, he's standing in front of curled middle fingers that are as tall as he is, and if they just like lost their tension and opened, he would fucking die.
Absolutely.
But he's unaware of that because he's clueless.
And then the last little one I had was, there's an NPC that you can talk to outside of Old Man Tony's house, and it's this little boy. His name in the text box is Secret Police Chief. He says,
that fucking kid.
He says, there's a golem engineer living in our small town. That's fishy as fuck, dude. So I have formed a secret police squad to investigate him, to make sure that he's not creating evil golems in his basement. You can be a secret agent too. If you see something suspicious, come and tell me. Which is just, he's so good.
I missed he was a kid at first, so my first thought playing was, oh god. Ugh. And I was like, oh, it's a child playing. Okay, never mind.
I wouldn't form a secret police squad about it, but I will agree the guy is sus.
He is pretty suspicious. What's that character from Recess who's like the the kind of kid who's just like, yes, the secret police force. I'm like, oh god.
No.
Oh, actually, I have a thing.
Yes.
Neat thing that we've only run into once with one of these dungeons, but I don't remember what the mechanic is called, but there's a whole thing where you can find this thing that is an optional mini boss.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's called Almost a Slur.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You can fight it, and if you beat it, you can turn off encounters for the rest of the dungeon while you're there, which is just a really nice mechanic. Yeah, the name's a little unfortunate, but like it was actually a pretty difficult, like not an easy boss fight either.
Yeah, we can call it a soul crystal instead of a soul what they want us to call it.
Yes.
It's a neat mechanic. I for some reason after I beat the thing, I forgot to turn encounters off. So, but that means I got experience.
Yeah.
I absolutely did. Also, I think it's interesting that like with how hard everything hits. I don't know if this is going to be this way the entire game, and I suspect it maybe won't be. But the fact that after every random encounter, you heal, which I definitely appreciate, because otherwise I would be terrified of game overing a lot.
Absolutely.
Because these random encounters are frequently like I end up with like half or less health with several of my characters.
But
definitely.
I think that's about all that I have for the week. Anything else anyone wants to say before we wrap it up?
I think that's it.
Awesome. So that'll do it for the week. If you like what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations help us cover the cost of running the show and making it better and better. If you set up a recurring monthly donation, you also get some additional benefits. If you donate $1 more a month, you can get access to our bonus feed, as well as access to our polls to decide what game we play next on the main feed. This week, we finished Tales of Fantasia, and we don't have to ever talk about it ever again. Except for there's 2 sequels to this game, so we'll talk about it twice more, I guess, maybe. But yeah, it was not fun, and Like it is a solid B tier RPG when it's not actively pissing you off, and unfortunately, half the game actively pisses you off. To quote Bernard, and yeah,
I didn't say half. I said 80%.
Yeah, it's not fun. You can go and listen to all of our thoughts on that over on the bonus feed. If you donate $5 or more a month, you will also shout out your name at the end of every episode, just like this. Shoutouts to Cerebral Wind, It's Claire Time, Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Floris, Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Aaron524, and Jfro Prime. And then finally, if you love us a whole heck of a lot and want to donate $20 or more a month, you can also make me say a sentence of your choosing, either to plug something or just to make me say specific words in order. Shoutouts to El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shoutouts to William Taylor, who wants you to check out rpgamer.com, reviews for people like us by people like us. And shoutouts to Vimk, who wants you to play Legend of Legaia. Please. And shoutouts to Carr, who is a dentist. So he isn't plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.